welcome to another episode of Codo Cinema, the podcast show where I talk about movies. I'm your host, Mark Codo, aka Codoman. And for this episode, I'm going to talk about an independent film. And this will be coming from director Damien Chazelle, and one of his film projects that he has done would be the 2014 independent psychological drama Whiplash, which came out in 2014. The film came out on January 16th, 2014 at Sundance, while it had its United States release on October 10th, 2014. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because it is celebrating its 10th anniversary, but also the fact that this is actually a film that I also liked, since it's basically taking place at a college. It's not only taking place at college, but it's also like the dynamic relationship between a student and teacher, mainly in the world of music. So you're all probably wondering, what's up with this movie, Whiplash? What does this have to do with the student and teacher relationship and music? Well, to give you a little bit of, just to break it down a little bit, just to give you the summary of the plot, the film follows the ambitious music student and inspiring jazz drummer named Andrew Neiman, being played by Miles Teller, who is pushed to his limit by his abusive instructor Terrence Fletcher, played by J.K. Simmons, at the fictitious Schaefer Conservatory in New York City. Okay, so that's basically your summary of the plot. So basically, this is basically, as I mentioned, a student and teacher relationship of, like, in the world of music. This is basically school-wise. Like, this is like a teacher teaching a student to go the limits of being an excellent musician by practicing so hard. Although the movie Whiplash takes it to the next level by the fact that Andrew Neiman doesn't realize that his band teacher or instructor is an abusive teacher. Before I break down the movie, I just want to give I want to give a little more background on the film. The film was produced by Blumhouse Productions, including Bold Films and Right Away Films, and it was distributed by Sony Pictures Classics. Plus the film itself was also based on a short film of the same name that Damien Chazelle also directed, and it was turned into an 18-minute short film, and it was played at the 2013 Sundance Film Festival, and it attracted investors to produce the complete version of the script, to which filming took place for the actual Whiplash film, not the short film, the actual film. The actual film took place in September of 2013 throughout Los Angeles in the course of 20 days. And this is an independent film. This is an independent film project that Damien Chazelle put together. And the film explores concepts of perfectionism, dedication, and success, and deconstructs the concept of ambition. Prior to the release of Whiplash, it had a limited release domestically in the United States and Canada on October 10th of 2014, although it gradually expanded to over 500 screens and finally closing on March 26, 2015. The film received widespread critical acclaim for its screenplay, direction, film editing, sound mixing, and the performance of Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons. The film grossed $49 million on a budget of $3.3 million, and at the time, and it became Damien Chazelle's highest-grossing feature film until the movie La La Land, which came out in 2016. La La Land, which was also directed by Damien Chazelle, grossed over $472 million on a budget of $30 million. Now that is impressive. Like, Damien Chazelle went from Whiplash and probably a couple movies before that. Like, he went from independent films to full length feature he went from independent films to, like, full length feature movies. That is impressive. Plus, J.K. Simmons will go on to win the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. Plus, it also won for Best Sound Mixing and Best Film Editing. Don't believe me? Watch the movie for yourself. Believe me, you'll know what I'm talking about. And words do not describe how well the movie Whiplash is. You should definitely watch this movie. The movie Whiplash is amazing. It does get on your nerves because of the direction that this movie's going to, but I promise you, this movie is amazing. And J.K. Simmons, in my opinion, his role of Terrence Fletcher, I say in my opinion, is his second best role. Aside from J. Jonah Jameson from Spider-Man, Terrence Fletcher is his second best role. Of course, he won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. That is amazing. So now just to give a couple more details, you're all probably wondering, why is the title of the movie Whiplash? What is up with that? Well, to give you some context, it could go through many ways. Whiplash is described as the flexible part of a whip or something resembling it. Although, of course, it could be an injury caused by a severe jerk to the head, typically in a motor vehicle accident. And then there's also described in a verb, jerk or jolt, someone or something suddenly, typically so as to cause injury. Now there's another reason why I also want to talk about this movie. Well, back at my college, Eastern Illinois University, I was a part of a music fraternity called Phi Mu Alpha Symphonia, which is a music fraternity on my college campus of Eastern Illinois University. Plus, I also double majored in TV and video production and audio recording and music. To tell you the truth, this adds in a huge layer to why. For another reason why I want to talk about this movie, well, it's because J.K. Simmons also holds a music degree, but he was also a music fraternity brother in Phi Mu Alpha Symphonia at the University of Montana, and that is amazing. It's literally amazing to literally talk about this film, knowing the fact that one of the most popular actors who is playing the role of Terrence Fletcher is a member of Phi Mu Alpha Symphonia. When I heard it for the first time, I was like, J.K. Simmons and Phi Mu Alpha Symphonia? I couldn't believe it, but I can see why. Yeah. Plus, also holding a music degree as well. That's amazing too. I mean, huge shout out to J.K. Simmons, man. Literally, huge shout out to him, man. And let's be honest, J.K. Simmons was literally the highlight of the movie Whiplash. So yeah. But anyway, let's break down the movie, shall we? So the movie opens up with Andrew Neiman being played by Miles Teller, playing the drums at Schaefer Conservatory of Music, the music school in the USA, and he's just an alternate drummer in some school band. Andrew abruptly stops playing drums when the band conductor, Terrence Fletcher, being played by J.K. Simmons, appears at the door in front of him and asking Andrew some personal information on him. When Fletcher asks Andrew why he stopped playing, he resumes playing the drums. After he finishes playing, Terrence says he did not mean to resume playing. Then he asks Andrew to show his rudiments by playing the drums again. While Andrew plays drums, Fletcher slams the door, but he comes back to retrieve his forgotten jacket. Now, here's the thing. This movie opens up very well. It's a blackout at one point. You hear the drums in the background from Andrew Neiman. Mostly Miles Teller. Fun fact: Miles Teller is also a drummer as well. Since he knows how to play drums as well. He played drums. He has played drums in the past before accepting this role. So at the very least, he at least knows what he's doing. Although of course, they'll probably have somebody else on standby to play the drum, to fill in for Miles Teller as well. So I'm pretty sure the filmmakers and Damien Chazelle has already got another person to fill in for Miles Teller as well for the drum playing sections, if you know what I'm saying. But I really like how this film opens up. Like, you hear the drums in the background, you hear the drums in the background. Like, it went from pitch black to just the band room with the spotlight shining down on Andrew Neiman while Terrence Fletcher comes in for the dark. Plus, you get this whole introduction between student and teacher. Like, at first, Terrence Fletcher is being, well, he is being strict, but also showing kindness as well. He's being kind to Andrew Neiman. He's like, "Hey, how you doing, kid?" And Neiman's like, "Yeah, I'm doing good. Why'd you stop playing?" Neiman was like, "I don't know." Well, this is where this is where the relationship starts between Fletcher and Neiman. Like, this is where it all starts. Like, Fletcher is looking for new members to join his band, and he sees Andrew Neiman as a potential candidate. And to be honest, that he sees it like that, and I can see that, and I can literally see that. So, and it happens. The next day, Andrew enters one class aside from Fletcher, and there he meets the drummer named Ryan Connolly, being played by Austin Stowell. Shortly, the professor arrives and the class performs Billy's Anne. Andrew sees the man, presumably Fletcher, in a silhouette looking at the door. After the class, Andrew peeks into one of the classrooms where the class is handled by Fletcher, and he's being looked at by Fletcher. Later, back at the studio band, Andrew is playing the drums as a core drummer. Suddenly, Fletcher breaks inside and Andrew becomes horrified of him. But once Fletcher conducts every saxophonist and bassist one by one, and finally the drums, and once that is done, Fletcher tells Andrew to come in, and being told to come at his room tomorrow at 6 in the morning. And this is the point where Fletcher is impressed at Neiman, and he's like, "I'm very impressed with you, Neiman. Why don't you come by tomorrow? Come by tomorrow in the studio room, 6 a.m. And at one point, that might be the sound like, oh, really? Oh, so I got so I'm filling it, so I got a spot in the band? That's fantastic. Well, a little more detail later on. But anyway, Andrew meets Nicole, being played by Melissa Benoist, who you may know her from the CW TV show Supergirl. Nicole is the girl working at a movie cinema, or a movie theater, I should say, and invites her to go out with him. Now just to let everybody know, Andrew just asked Nicole out, and she is the movie theater girl, or movie theater clerk, I should say, working at the front desk, like selling tickets and popcorn, because one of the few things that Andrew Neiman does outside of being a drummer, basically going to movie theaters with his father, and it's a very touching moment too. I really like it's a very nice touching moment, like knowing the fact you're going to see movies with one of your family members, will also mean somebody new at the theater. That's actually pretty nice. Outside of playing drums. So the next day, Andrew realizes that he is late for class, and he struggles and rushes out the door to get to school. And he goes inside the empty classroom, only to realize that the class doesn't start till 9 a.m. So you're probably wondering, why did Fletcher tell Neiman to meet up at 6 a.m. in the studio or classroom? What's the point of that? I think it's one of those moments where it's up to the audience to decide. Like this is one of those moments. Maybe because Fletcher wants Neiman to get there early and warm up, or even practice a little bit. That could be something too, because for musicians, because there are many musicians. There are musicians that I know from my college experience where where musicians have to like practice every day. Every music student has to practice every day. From my college experience, but and sure yes, elementary, high school, middle school, but for college as well, because this is in a college setting. This is a college setting because there are musicians who not just play in one ensemble group, but multiple ensemble groups, and they have to practice every day to rehearse and get ready for a big concert or an event, even for class as well. Maybe that's why Fletcher wanted Neiman to get up early, be in the classroom by 6 a.m. Maybe it's just to test him. Maybe it's just to have him warm up and rehearse a little bit. I think that's the reason. I think that's the reason why. I mean, if that could be the answer. I don't know, to be honest. And I could be wrong on that, but for those who have known this scene, who have seen this movie before, let me know your thoughts on that. Let me know your thoughts on that moment. But anyway, at exactly 9 a.m., Fletcher arrives and begins conducting the song called Whiplash. And during the band practice, Fletcher confronts a saxophone player named Metz, who's being played by C.J. Vanna, and the reason why Fletcher confronts Metz is because he thinks Metz is playing out of tune, and he hears different musicians playing, and he hears a musician playing out of tune. So you're probably wondering, who was playing? Who was the person? Well, it turns out he looks at a trombone player. He even calls the trombone player Elmer Fudd. You know, Elmer Fudd from Looney Tunes. Screwy trombone player. Oh my goodness! Like, he calls his trombone player Elmer Fudd, and he asks the trombone player, "Do you think you're out of tune?" Like at one point he's being kind at one point, but the look on his face, but it literally turns into a complete 180 once the kid says yes. And then Fletcher's like, "Then why the hell did you say so?" He yells at the trombone player, and the trombone player begins to cry. And what literally comes next is Fletcher saying,
"Carried your fat ass for too long, Mets. I'm not going to have you cost us a competition because your mind's on a freaking Happy Meal instead of on pitch."
Oh my goodness, we get one of the few insults from Fletcher right out of the gate. And I'm gonna tell you this, like, seeing this movie, like I've seen this movie, but I've also seen clips of Whiplash, most notably from Terrence Fletcher, J.K. Simmons. Like, he holds no punches on his insults. Like, he insulted the trombone player. And here's the thing. The reason why because he doesn't want his band to be, ruined. The band to, like, lose a competition. Like, he doesn't, like, he is determined to compete. He's a competitive teacher. Terrence Fletcher he is a strict, abusive band teacher. Like, at one point at the start of the movie, he looks like a nice teacher, but once he comes into the classroom, like, oh boy, once he walks into the classroom, he's like, "There's no turning back now." Like literally. And of course, the trombone player walks out of the classroom crying, but unfortunately it turns out it was somebody else. And unfortunately, the other musician, the musician didn't really know better. Now of course, Fletcher takes a break from class, and Fletcher and Andrew have a conversation about his life and family. Now, this is another thing that comes in. Like, Fletcher is asking Andrew Neiman about his personal life, like about his family, like who does he live with, what town did he come from, how many brothers or sisters does he have a mom, does he have a dad, like all those things. Like, Andrew Neiman tells Fletcher about his family and life. And once break is over, the class resumes, and this is where the class rehearsed Whiplash, which is the song that Fletcher gave to the band. And Andrew Neiman is struggling with the tempo, and Fletcher is like, something's not right, not quite my tempo, not my tempo. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Like, you see in the look on Fletcher's face, like he is starting to get mad, but at the same time he's trying to cool himself down. He's trying to cool himself down. Like, he is literally restraining himself from being from his wrath, his anger. Like, he's literally ready to throw down on Neiman for screwing up with the tempo. Like listen, I play violin. I've been playing violin in the orchestra for literally my entire life, from elementary school all the way up to my college days. And of course, I actually played for the DuPage Symphony Orchestra for 1 year as well. Like, nowadays, nowadays I play for my church. I play for my church on for Saturday and Sunday masses. But literally, even for me, I struggle in tempo too. That's why you gotta use a metronome. The metronome helps too. But between Neiman and Fletcher, oh boy, like, Fletcher loses his patience and he throws a chair at Andrew, but Andrew dodges it. Like, this is realizing that, like, something's up. Andrew's wondering, why did Fletcher throw the chair at him? But Fletcher's like, are you rushing or are you dragging? And Neiman's like, I don't know. And Fletcher literally marches over to Neiman, and he in fury tells Neiman to start counting. He's like, start counting, 5, 6, 7, and 4. Damn it, look at me. Like Fletcher looks at Neiman, tells Neiman to count from 4, and Neiman starts counting. And what does Fletcher do? Fletcher slaps Neiman in the face 4 times. Well, actually twice, because the first time around, and Fletcher slaps him twice because Andrew was counting in 4, and he's like, I don't know if I'm rushing or dragging. Then Fletcher's like, count again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Slap. 1, 2, 3, 4. Slap. And then Fletcher keeps asking Neiman, rushing or dragging. And then Neiman was like, rushing. And then Fletcher's like, so you do know the difference. And here's the thing, he keeps going. He literally throws out more insults, and like he literally throws out more insults, and Fletcher keeps on going. Like, he literally taunts Neiman because Neiman's like struggling. Even at one point, he literally tries to sing out the notes, saying ba 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 ba, and then Fletcher's like, what is this acapella? Play the notes. And then he keeps on going and going until the point where Neiman starts crying. Neiman, yeah, he starts crying. He literally starts crying, and then Fletcher's like, oh my goodness, please tell me you're not one of those softies, are you? Are you upset? Tell me that you're upset. Are you really upset? Like, literally, Fletcher is taunting Neiman and insulting him too. Like, literally, like, and Fletcher tells Neiman to say, I'm upset, in front of the class. He says, like, he tells Neiman, tell the class you're upset. Neiman's like, I'm upset. Louder! I'm upset! And, oh my goodness, isn't that embarrassing? It really feels embarrassing, knowing the fact that Neiman, who is sitting right in front of Fletcher, and Fletcher telling Neiman to tell the whole class that he is upset. Wow. I mean, let's be honest, I probably have seen my fair share of students be upset too, for, screwing up like that. Like, I probably have seen my fair share of that too, but knowing the fact that it is one of the few embarrassing moments, it is an embarrassing moment for Neiman.
And to add insult to injury, remember the conversation that Fletcher and Neiman had before rehearsal resumed? about Neiman telling Fletcher about his personal life, he brings up his mom because Andrew Neiman's mom left him as a like Andrew Neiman's mom left Andrew Neiman's mom left him as a baby, and he brought this up to Fletcher, and then because one of the insults that Fletcher threw at Neiman was, "You are a worthless piece of shit whose mommy left daddy when she figured out he wasn't Eugene O'Neill." Eugene O'Neill is basically a playwright, and that's basically Fletcher throwing a jab, not just at Neiman, but also at his father, too. And the insult continues. And this is going back to Neiman, because now Neiman and Florence just keeps rambling on Neiman, saying like that Neiman is weeping and slobbering all over the drum set like he is a 9-year-old girl. And Fletcher tells Neiman to say it one more time. "And now for the final time, say it louder! I'm upset!" Wow. Wow. Fletcher was holding no punches on Neiman right there.
And then once the whole tantrum is over, once the whole temple tantrum is over, Fletcher tells Connolly to get back to fill in for Neiman, and then Fletcher tells Neiman to rehearse Whiplash in big boy tempo, which obviously was another insult because Neiman was crying. Because the thing is, in this classroom, they're getting ready for this competition. They're getting ready for a competition, and Whiplash is one of the songs that this band is playing. Basically, after class, Andrew practiced his drums. So, he's rehearsing and practicing his part for Whiplash. And at the very point, Andrew noticed that his hand begins to bleed. And to me, I'm noticing that too. And this is, to me, look, first time watching this, I was like, what's going on with Neiman's hand? But then the more I watched this, the more I realized that, he's literally gripping the drums. He's gripping so hard on the drumstick that is literally causing it to bleed. Guys, I'm not a drummer, and I can't imagine how hard it is for a drum player to literally practice so hard until they bleed their hands off. And literally, Andrew Neiman, he literally, for every time his hand begins to bleed, he puts Band-Aids on every time it bleeds. But the bandages keep coming off. The Band-Aids keep coming off. And I'm just impressed with Neiman's determination and ambition to keep practicing, trying to get up to speed on the tempo that Fletcher wants him to do. And props to Andrew Neiman. Props to Miles Teller, man. I can't imagine how hard it is for a drummer to go through that process. So after practice, Neiman goes on a date with Nicole from the movie theater that Neiman went to with his dad. I mean, and for a little bit, I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I didn't really care that much for Neiman and Nicole. It's a very cute moment, that knowing the fact that Neiman and Nicole are going on a date, and obviously that's a little bit outside of Neiman's music career, especially in college. I mean, I get that. I mean, I really get that, and I think it's a nice moment. But to me, I didn't really care. For the relationship as much. I mean, it's a very cute moment, but as cute as it is, you barely remember the whole dating situation between Neiman and Nicole throughout this movie, if you know what I'm saying. But that's just me and my personal opinion. So the next day, Fletcher, Neiman, and the rest of the band are basically at a competition, and after one of the songs that they played, Tanner, being played by Nate Lang, who is a core drummer, gives his music sheets to Andrew, and Andrew neglects the music sheets to buy a can of Coke or even Pepsi. This was at a Pepsi machine, by the way, at the automated vending machine. And Tanner comes by. He asks Neiman for his music sheets back. Basically, the folder. And the folder mysteriously disappears. Now, before I go into a little more detail about the missing folder, let me double back to a previous scene before that. Like when the band was setting up, Fletcher literally tells the classmates about their folders. Like he literally tells the classmates, if I ever find one of these folders lying around, I will stop being so polite. Like literally losing your music folder. Okay, if you thought not rehearsing enough is bad enough, try losing your music folder and telling your band professor or band teacher or even orchestra teacher that you lost your folder. That is embarrassing. You know how embarrassing that would be if you lose your own music folder? That is embarrassing. Literally, Fletcher tells everybody in the classroom about that. This literally gets thrown out right away because Tanner gave Neiman the folder, and Neiman set the folder down on this chair right next to this vending machine just to grab a can of Pepsi or Coke or whatever you want or whatever. And about a few seconds later, Tanner comes back and he tells Neiman, "Hey, can I have the folder back?" And then Neiman's like, here it is. It's on this chair right here." And then the folder's gone. Literally, the folder mysteriously disappears. And then Tanner is like, "How could you be so stupid? Like, where's the folder? Who took the folder?" Neiman was like, I don't know. I swear, it was right there. Maybe a janitor picked it up." And then Tanner's like, "A janitor? Find the folder. A janitor? Find the folder." Okay, now Tanner and Neiman overreacted, and both of these actors do a fantastic job, but I'm just going to say this right there. It is Tanner's fault for giving Neiman the folder. Like, it's Tanner's fault. Sure, yes, Andrew Neiman does... Neiman does deserve a little flack for losing the folder, but it's not really Neiman's fault. It's literally it's Tanner's fault because it's Tanner's folder, not Neiman's folder. And Tanner's responsible for the folder. The folder was Tanner's, not Neiman's folder. Like, Tanner was responsible for it. Now, to all of you musicians who are still playing in a band, orchestra, choir, or any type of ensemble group, you are responsible for your own folder. If the teacher gives you the folder, you are responsible for it. Don't give it to somebody. Don't give it to somebody else. And don't give it to somebody else and have that other person lose it, because you will regret it. It's gonna bite you in the ass. Because in this scene right here with Tanner and Neiman, like literally Tanner gave Neiman the folder and lost the folder. Like literally the folder, like it will bite you in the ass. Like every musician is responsible for their own folder, so don't lose it. I don't care who gives it. I don't care who gives it to who. You are responsible for your own folder. I'm just throwing it out there. All right. And then later on, Fletcher was looking for Neiman and Tanner, and then Fletcher's like, "Where the hell have you guys been?" And it turns out like both Tanner and Neiman told her that they lost the folder, but of course, as I mentioned, Tanner was responsible for the folder, and Fletcher's like, "The folder was your responsibility. The folder was your responsibility." And see right there, see, it was Tanner's responsibility. It wasn't Neiman's folder. It wasn't Neiman's folder. It was Tanner's folder. And then of course, I feel like this. Like I said, this also throws out the proportion of Fletcher stop being so polite, because Fletcher is being a little polite in this situation, but he's also being a little rude too. He's being a little rude too, because knowing the fact that Fletcher just realized that Tanner lost the folder, but it's like, listen, the folder was your responsibility. Now we gotta start playing. he tells Tanner to, like, just play the parts, even if you lost the music. And then Tanner was like, I can't play the parts. It's a medical condition. And then Fletcher's like, are you freaking kidding me? What are you, Sanjay Gupta? Just play the damn parts. But Neiman was like, I'll play it. Because Andrew Neiman practiced so hard, and he told Fletcher that he learned the parts by heart. And then Fletcher, and this is Whiplash. This is the Whiplash song that he's gonna play. And then Fletcher's like, okay, I hope you know what you're doing, because I do not want to lose this competition. So get your sticks, get your ass on the drum set, on stage. Oh, and right before literally, Neiman literally plays the whole song by heart on the drums, and Fletcher was impressed. He was so impressed that the studio band won the competition. That is impressive. Props to you, Andrew Neiman. Props to you. And also, you're also probably wondering, what happened to the folder? Who took the folder? Well, this is another instance where this is another moment where it's left up. It is up to the audience. It is left to the audience to decide who took the folder. Many people speculated that it was Fletcher who took the folder just to prove his point. Some people even said that maybe it was the janitor who took it. And here's another hint. Before the studio band's first performance at the competition, Fletcher sees this one guy who is walking up next to him inside the rehearsal hall, inside the band room, and Fletcher tells this guy, Get out of my sight before I demolish you. And this is when he was holding the folder, just to tell his students that if I ever see one of these folders again, I will stop being so polite. And then Fletcher sees the guy still standing around. He's like, I can still see you, Mini-Me. It could be the guy in the room. Like, it could be that one guy in the room who was walking up to Fletcher, probably about to ask a question about the folder, and then Fletcher's like, no, get out of my sight. Maybe it was that guy. I think it was that guy who walked out to Fletcher. It was the guy wearing this, I believe it was a black bandana, and wearing this black shirt. Concert attire, like jazz band concert attire, if you know what I'm saying. Maybe it was probably that guy. I don't know, to be honest, but it is. That is up to you to decide who took the folder. Just saying. Okay, so at the studio band, the band is practicing a new song called Caravan, which needs an extreme timestamp measure of 330 beats per minute. And Fletcher dismisses the band except Andrew when Fletcher discusses him about that note. Shortly thereafter, Ryan Connolly, whom Andrew met from the other class, arrives. Andrew plays the drums to test the ability of the tempo, but his tempo fails, while Ryan plays the tempo very well. Therefore, Fletcher takes Ryan as the new core drummer, but Andrew does not agree to this. Neiman is jealous, and he argues with Fletcher. Fletcher tells Neiman, if you want the part, you gotta prove yourself. If you want the part, you need to play hard. You need to practice harder. Literally, right there. But literally, Fletcher tells Andrew, he will earn the part. He will be the core drummer if he earns the part. So then later on, things get out of hand too. I wanted at dinner at home, literally at Neiman's home, he's being the outcast from his family because his relatives do a lot of stuff, but they don't think Neiman as having a career as a drum player won't do any well. So Andrew Neiman wants to prove himself to be better, and of course this leads into him disconnecting from his family, but also breaking up with his girlfriend Nicole, saying his ambition will only hinder their relationship, and that is tough. That is tough. Andrew Neiman is setting everything aside, everything from his love interest to his family, just to practice hard. He wants to perfect. He wants to perfect himself, to perfect his skill set as a drummer. That is what he's doing. He's literally sacrificing everything that he has to perfect his skill as a drummer. And literally at his home, like or his apartment, or his studio, like he takes everything from his home and puts it inside his studio room, like the little rehearsal hall. You know, that little rehearsal hall. He takes everything from his room, from his home, for like his bed sheets, to his poster of Buddy Rich, like everything, including his alarm clock, to his very own rehearsal hall, and practice so hard. And Andrew is practicing the drums so hard, and he has a water pitcher with ice inside, and he uses that just in case his hand bleeds, and his hand literally bleeds. His hand bleeds out, and he literally makes a fist which is full of gushing blood, puts it inside the water pitcher just to heal it. And I can't imagine a drummer who will practice so hard, his or her hand will bleed. That is intimidating. I can't imagine how hurtful that would be. But you know what? At the end of the day, really, but I will be, to be honest, hard work does pay off. And it really does. Hard work does pay off. Especially for Neiman, but it does come at a price. It literally does come at a price for Neiman. And he literally fails to reach the required tempo by the time he tries to play his drum inside his studio room. He punches the drum in frustration, which causes the hand to bleed, which explains why he literally put his fist inside the water pitcher just to heal. And literally, if you look very closely at the music sheet of Caravan, there is literally telling, he really writes notes just to say, pick up the speed, play very fast, fast tempo. And then one of them had and then one of them it literally said, you get notes, you get music, you get notes you gotta write on your music saying you gotta play fast, make sure the note is very high, make sure the tempo is up to speed, something like that. That's what you see in the music, in the music of Caravan. You see that Neiman is writing down notes too, and that was probably during rehearsal as well. Now, at the studio band, Fletcher tearfully reveals in class that a talented former student of his, Sean Casey, has died in a car accident. Now, of course, this is another moment that comes back later because Fletcher, who is an abusive teacher, taught this student before, and that comes back later. That literally comes back later, but he literally tells the class that a student that he knows died in a car accident. Now, of course, the band rehearsed Caravan, but of course, Carl Tanner, Andrew Neiman, and Ryan Connolly struggle with the tempo, and Fletcher is like, "Not my freaking tempo!" And Fletcher goes so far as to tell the band that they're gonna stay late. He tells everybody, "Sorry, folks, I hate to put you through this. If you need to get a coffee, take a dump, now might be a good time because we're gonna be here all night. If I had to find a drummer who could play at a very reasonable tempo, I apologize to the musicians." That is brutal. That is literally brutal right there. That is so brutal. That is a brutal insult right there. That is a brutal, but let's be honest insult. Was that the most honest insult that Fletcher said? "I apologize to the musician. That we're gonna be here all night until I can find a drummer who could play on pitch." He looks back at the drummers and he says, "You hear me, dum-dums? You better start giving me perfect tempos. Connolly, get your ass back on the kit." Literally everybody else everybody else who was not playing drums were outside for hours. They were out there for hours waiting for Fletcher to give the okay and be ready for rehearsal. And literally Fletcher is Fletcher doesn't hold any punches. He looks at Neiman, who is playing at a fast tempo, and he is like, "Is that the fastest that you can play?" No wonder why your mommy ran out of you. The reason why Fletcher flew out that line because Neiman's mom left. Neiman's mom left the family, but later on, once Neiman was done trying to practice, Tanner comes back. Tanner comes in to fill in for Neiman, and then oh my goodness, Fletcher throws out another insult saying, "And here comes Mr. Gay Pride on the Upper West Side." Unfortunately, this is not a Bette Midler concert, and whatever Bette Midler does, just play as fast as you can. Oh my goodness, Fletcher just literally threw out another insult, calling Tanner Mr. Gay Pride on the Upper West Side. Oh my goodness. I'm telling you, like, as much as I want to talk a lot more about these insults, there's so many to count. I say watch the movie for yourself. Words do not describe the amount of insults Fletcher literally throws at his students. Unfortunately, Tanner fails to impress Fletcher, and then Connolly comes back on the drum set, and then he's like, "You there with the Irish redhead? You do look like a leprechaun. So how about I call you Flannery?" Oh my goodness. Oh, he literally calls Connolly a leprechaun. Maybe Connolly's Irish. I don't know. But anyway, there's a moment where the camera where the scene cuts to one of the students in the bathroom washing his face in the sink, and then from the distance you hear Fletcher just swearing like crazy, like a crazy maniac, and the student in the bathroom was like, "Oh my goodness, what is that professor up to?" And then of course Connolly's back. And then of course Connolly's back on the drum set, and Fletcher looks at Connolly, who is basically adjusting the C height, and Fletcher's like, "What are you looking down? What are you looking down there for? There's no pot of gold there. Oh, you're adjusting the C height? That's been your whole problem, the C height. So now you have it. Go!" Connolly plays again, but Fletcher's like, "Not good enough." And then he looks at Neiman. And he tells Neiman, "Maybe it's time to finally do it. What are you saying?" So Neiman plays as fast as he can, and Fletcher literally steps in and says, "Don't slow down. Pick it up. Faster, faster, faster." And then to literally torture Neiman, he pulls out a cowbell. He starts banging on it because Fletcher has a fever and his only prescription is more cowbell. But he tosses the cowbell aside because his fever was cured, and Fletcher keeps berating Neiman just to keep playing until the tempo is up to speed, and until Neiman's hands bleed. And they do. His hands bleed, and Fletcher stops Neiman, and he says, "Neiman, you earned the part." Neiman, tired, exhausted, but at the same time full of joy that he got the part. And then Fletcher brings the band back in. Fletcher brings the rest of the class in and says, "Okay, let's rehearse." Many hours later, rehearsal was done, and Neiman walks outside, defeated, tired, to the point where he is just done. He is done. Like, he realizes what he is going through. Like, I can't imagine how burnt out that would be. Sitting in rehearsals for hours and hours among that. I mean, I can't remember the number of hours, although I will say this, I say between 1 to 3 hours. I've been at rehearsals for about 1 to 3 hours at times, but I do remember being at rehearsals a little longer than that. But for Neiman, Andrew Neiman, oh my goodness, like he is defeated, burnt out, destroyed, tired, like literally to the point where literally to the point that he's ready to call it quits. But no, Andrew Neiman is determined. He really wants to. He earned the part, and he's gonna have to perform it at the competition. And on the way to a jazz competition, the bus that Andrew rode on breaks down. So Andrew rents a car, but he arrives late for rehearsal without his drumsticks. And this leads up to an argument, another argument between Fletcher and Neiman about the parts, and of course, and then of course, Fletcher sees Neiman's like, huh, nice to see you here. Nice that you can fit into your busy schedule. And then Fletcher tells Neiman that Fletcher tells Neiman that Connolly's gonna play the part, and then Neiman's like hell he's gonna play my part, and then Fletcher's like, what the hell did you just say to me? I find that impressive because now he's starting to talk like Fletcher a little bit, and they both get into an argument of what Neiman and Fletcher can and cannot do, knowing the fact that Neiman lost his drumsticks at the car rental place, and Fletcher tells Neiman that he lost the part. Neiman's like, you can't do this to me. And Fletcher says, can? Yeah. When do you become a genius of what I can and cannot do? The only reason you're in studio band to begin with because you misplaced the folder. Well, he is right because Neiman misplaced the folder. Technically, it was Tanner's fault for giving Neiman the folder, and then the argument keeps on going until Connolly intervenes, telling Neiman to back off. And then this actually leads to my favorite insult from this movie, in my opinion. This is when Neiman yells at Connolly to tell him to screw off. He tells Connolly, "Hey, screw off, Johnny Utah! Turn my pages, bitch!" And this is so hilarious too. Like, that's my favorite insult from the movie, in my personal opinion, because a couple of details. A few details. One, if you look at the moment where Fletcher hears Neiman insulting Connolly, calling him Johnny Utah, there is a look on his face where he's very impressed, and Fletcher's like, huh, somebody's speaking my language now. But also another fact, Johnny Utah is a character from Point Break, which is basically the action movie starring Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves played Johnny Utah. Plus, it was also directed by Catherine Bigelow. But there's also more layers to it. But literally, Andrew Neiman calling Connolly Johnny Utah. Turn my pages, turn my pages, bitch. That's literally my favorite insult from this movie. Oh my goodness. And then Fletcher tells Neiman, I can cut you at any time I want, so try me. So then Fletcher gives Neiman a choice. He tells Neiman, if you make one mistake, I will drum your ass back to Nassau just to turn pages until you can graduate, and by the time you're done at Schaefer, you're gonna make Daddy look like a success story, or we'll let Johnny Utah play the part. You choose. And then Neiman's like, that's my part. I'll be on your stage. I'll be on your stage I'll be back on stage in 10 minutes, because Fletcher tells Neiman that the band's gonna warm up in 10 minutes, but unfortunately it takes more than 10 minutes. It takes 20 minutes to get from the car rental place and back to the school in 20 minutes. And Neiman gets into a car accident Neiman gets hit by a truck. Like, Neiman gets hit by a truck. So it's a car accident. So it's basically a car accident. And he crawls from the wreckage, and despite his injury and bloodied face, he struggles to make it into the jazz competition. And I can't imagine that. Like, I can't imagine how bad that is. Now, I can't imagine how hard that would be. Someone coming from a car accident to a competition, trying to keep the show keep going despite the pain and suffering that this person is going through. Like, I give Neiman props for trying to perfect his craft despite being injured and trying to perform at the competition. I give him props, but there has to be a point in time where there's got to be a moment where you can't really. This is the point where that can't be. It can't happen like that. But I can't imagine that. I mean, in today's world that we're living in, like, someone who's trying to perfect his craft but gets into a car accident like that, but also being told that no, you can't do this. Like, I can't imagine that. I feel like Johnny Utah should have played the part, but Neiman is so determined to play that part because he earned that part. Well, to earn that part, but Neiman's like, no, I'm not gonna let my injuries, I'm not gonna let my bloody face get in the way. I'm going to play. I am going to play. But unfortunately, the pain gets to him because his left hand is injured and he is unable to play, and then he drops the drumstick to the floor, and then after a foul performance, Fletcher stops the band and he tells Andrew that he is done. He didn't yell at Neiman. He calms himself down. Fletcher calms himself down. He does give a stern look at Neiman, but he sees Neiman. He's full of blood. He is breathing so heavy, and Fletcher tells Neiman, you're done. Like, he tells Neiman that he's done, and then Fletcher tells the audience. He apologizes to the audience. He tells, gentlemen and ladies, I apologize for the interruption. But Andrew Neiman snaps and tackles Fletcher. He tackles Fletcher. He tackles Fletcher to the point where the band members drag Neiman out. We're to the point where Neiman's band members drag him off stage. Like, Neiman is being dragged off stage in front of the audience. That is embarrassing right there. The next day, Andrew is expelled from Schaefer and contacted by a lawyer representing the parents of Sean Casey. The lawyer explains that Sean actually hanged himself, having suffered from anxiety and depression after joining Fletcher's class. And Sean's parents want to prevent Fletcher from teaching. Andrew agrees to testify and Fletcher is fired. So Fletcher is fired from Schaefer because a representative of Sean Casey came in, after hearing of Andrew's incident. But this goes back to the backstory of Fletcher telling the class that Sean Casey was killed in a car accident, when in reality he hanged himself because of the anxiety and depression that Sean Casey went through during his time in the studio band with Fletcher, knowing the fact that Fletcher was being abusive to Sean Casey, which means he literally singled out Neiman as his next victim. So then Andrew is expelled from Schaefer, and he basically works at a job, which is basically a coffee job. And then once he's done with his job, he goes to a club where he sees Fletcher and the jazz performers playing piano. And Fletcher was playing piano, and Neiman is actually happy to see Fletcher at this point. And he talks to Fletcher, has a conversation, and Fletcher calls him, and they both have a chat. Fletcher explains that he pushes his students beyond the expected. Fletcher explains that he pushes his students above and beyond, past the limit. So what Fletcher really does, he pushes his students to the limit to achieve greatness. And I can see where he's coming from. I can see where Fletcher is coming from, like why he wants his band to win. He wants his students to work hard, to go above and beyond, to achieve greatness. I can see where he's going with that, but that doesn't mean you should abuse your students or insult your students, because Fletcher will be fired immediately if he does that. And Fletcher did. Fletcher abused his students to the point where one of his students killed himself. And it's terrible. It is a terrible, terrible, terrible incident. But I can see what Fletcher's trying to do. But like I said, I can see Fletcher wants his students to achieve greatness, but that doesn't mean you should hurt your students or abuse your students, or even to the point where someone commits suicide. That is low right there for Fletcher. That is low right there for Fletcher. But that being said, Fletcher invites Andrew to perform at the JVC Festival concert with his band, and Andrew agrees, and he tries to invite his ex-girlfriend Nicole, learning that she has a new relationship. Not much to say right there, but moving on. Now on stage, Fletcher tells Andrew he knows he testified against him, and in revenge, leads the band in a new piece, and Andrew was not given sheet music for it. So Andrew leaves the stage humiliated, but returns and begins playing Caravan, interrupting Fletcher as he addresses the audience. The rest of the band joins him, and Fletcher follows suit. And I'm going to be honest with you, this last scene where Neiman is playing Caravan just to interrupt the schedule is literally the best scene in this movie. Like, Andrew Neiman playing Caravan in front of a live audience is literally the best scene. Like, Andrew is up to perfection with his craft, and Fletcher is so impressed. And of course, even Andrew's father is impressed too. Like, literally, Andrew's father was against the idea of Neiman going back to Fletcher, knowing what Fletcher did to him. Like, he didn't want Neiman to be hurt or to be killed by Fletcher. But Neiman is Neiman is up to the challenge, to perfecting his craft, knowing the fact that he is ready to play Caravan, and he does. He plays it so well, and it's actually improvised. This is all improvised. This final scene of Miles Teller as Neiman, Miles Teller as Andrew Neiman playing Caravan, is all improvised. This is all improvised, and he plays it so well. What really adds to this scene is the editing. The editing goes back and forth between not only Neiman and Fletcher, but also the other band members as well. You get different angle shots. You get different angle shots and close-up shots. The camera panning back and forth, tilting up and down. Like, it is so well made. This is a well-made scene, and it literally deserves that Oscar for best film editing. That is editing at its perfection right there. Damien Chazelle literally knocked it out of the ballpark with this movie, particularly with the ending. And this whole sequence is so good right there. Even Fletcher is so impressed with Neiman. Like, literally, the dynamic chemistry between Fletcher and Neiman is great. It is so good. Like, despite the arguments, the insults, like, the chemistry between student and teacher is right there. It is so good. And in fact, this whole scene ends with Neiman perfecting the last few measures of Caravan. And once Fletcher looks at Neiman, he nods his head. Fletcher nods his head at Neiman. The beat was there. The tempo was there. Fletcher was like, hell yeah, now that's my tempo. And then Fletcher cues the band to end the song, and it cuts to black. What a good way to end this movie. Neiman sacrificed everything to perfect his craft. Despite the injuries that he had to face, he literally got the job done. The hard work paid off for him. Neiman went to hell and back to perfect his craft on that song. And not just Caravan, but also Whiplash. Both of those songs, just to get the tempo and the craft, the craft and perfection that he needs. It was there. He practiced so hard to get it. And Neiman earned it. And the ending scene with Caravan was the cherry on top of this movie. And my goodness, there was a lot to say. I mean, I know there is a lot to say, but the movie really speaks for itself. If you have not seen this movie, I highly recommend watching this movie. Sure, yes, there are moments where it's hard to watch, but literally getting through the story of this movie, the acting between Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons, it is amazing. And it is a great movie. Even the editing is so good too. The music is amazing as well. So is the writing too. And my goodness, the insults in this movie, there are so many insults from Terrence Fletcher. So many to count for, and Terrence Fletcher holds no punches on those insults. My goodness. My goodness. It is rough. And Fletcher is basically the Gordon Ramsay of music. You get Gordon Ramsay in the kitchen. You get Gordon Ramsay in the kitchen. It's even like, it feels like Fletcher is basically a combination of Gordon Ramsay, Arlie Ermy, and J. Jonah Jameson all in one music hall. Like, literally. J.K. Simmons literally did a fantastic job. Big shout out to you, J.K. Simmons. Like, big shout out to you. You did a fantastic job playing Fletcher. Same with Miles Teller as well. Miles Teller. This is one of Miles Teller's early movie roles. He had a few roles before, like in Divergent, but Whiplash literally cemented him as a movie star. And he literally took on other movie roles as well, including Top Gun Maverick as the son of Goose. Miles Teller playing Rooster, which is basically his code name. Miles Teller, he's got a good career. He literally has a good career ahead of him, and he does a fantastic job playing Andrew Neiman. Both Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons did a fantastic job. So did Damien Chazelle. And that is a wrap on this episode. So anyway, for those of you who have seen the movie, what did you guys think of the movie Whiplash? Did you like the movie? Did you not like the movie? I would like to hear your thoughts. But anyway, that is a wrap on this episode. Thank you all for tuning in to Codo Cinema. I'm your host, Mark Codo, aka Codoman. Remember to watch movies and stay positive.